how to see yourself in relation to the industry. This video is to help newcomers to acclimatize themselves to the new writing industry. So I just wanted to share with you all some points for entry. So here goes. The first thing that I would tell a new person who started to write and was curious about the industry and wanted to get into the industry is don't believe the hype, right? So as a person who would have been reading books and shopping and being around the industry, it's a little different when you decide to get involved. You have to actually become more immersive. You have to do a little more research, and you have to find out what is the real situation behind a few things. Things like, what is a bestseller? A lot of people don't understand the dynamics behind how a book becomes a bestseller, right? Now there's this scale or listing on Amazon, and a lot of writers are there running to the computers every day to see if their levels have changed, and it's really unfortunate because a lot of the time you're just wasting time when you could have been doing something a little more productive for your product, right? These are just my views. This is just how I see it. So my advice would be for persons to do research and find out exactly what a bestseller is and how that impacts on your product, right? The other thing that I would tell somebody that they need to do research about is finding the value of reviews. Professional reviews is one thing, and that is hard enough to pursue, but even casual reviews, having persons give you proper feedback, that first few days after you make your manuscript public, right? That could be really tricky, whether you're using friends or family. The person would have to read through your entire work and be analytical enough to give you that type of feedback that you're looking for. And sometimes it's disappointing. Sometimes you can't get it. Sometimes, it's not what you anticipated and it's not what you need to grow. So all of those things you have to get accustomed to as a new writer trying to break into the industry. You need to find out the difference between traditional publishing and independent publishing, right? Because indie publishing is broad and wide, and it offers you all these new possibilities, and traditional is, well, just that. It sits there in its rigid form, and it expects you to conform to its standards for entry. It's best that you know the difference between the two and how they merge at some point in the industry and what that means for your product. So as we look at how the new entrant sees themselves in the industry, the next piece of advice I would give to young writers is that only writers could really claim the industry, right? Yes, the industry is filled with all kinds of service providers, all type of supporting services, and people who are in the industry for a lot longer than you, but everybody is waiting for your product. So that's the difference. You're coming in as the greenhorn, as the newcomer with the holy grail, right? It's only when you bring your material and your ideas, then they could start working on your structure, your book, your cover, your material, how to market it, where to market it, and then they could go into their song and dance, that they're accustomed to. But at the end of the day, it's only the writers who can really own the industry. At least that's how I see it. That's what will fuel my confidence going in, right? I am the source, right? So I would share that for with newcomers so that they could feel confident coming into the industry, to know that everybody is waiting for what the writer produces next, right? So regardless of publishers, publicists, editors, marketing people, promotional people, graphic artists, all these people are supplementary staff. All these people are waiting to embellish on what you put out there, right? So keep that in mind, and when you enter the industry, you always weigh up the things that are coming to you. I mean, you should not be viewing opportunities as things that you have to run down, but rather things that come to you and will keep coming to you because you have the material. You have the stuff that they need to keep churning out all these literary projects, right? So I think that's an important point for newcomers to keep in mind, because a lot of the times when you get in there, people will dangle cherries and you'll feel that this is the last time that you'll get an opportunity. No, right? The first time is always novel and we always remember those things, but it won't be the last time, right? So weigh up everything and balance things in a way that you could pursue your targets, right? And always understand that external to your targets, people could give you suggestions and people could offer you opportunities, but it's up to you to plan your journey. Alright, so the next point that I would share is an interesting point where I would strongly suggest to young writers: write first and speculate after. You see, after we get the material down, we could do editing, we could do a whole lot of speculating about what could happen and what would happen, what should happen, what we would like to happen, what we don't want to happen. But the important thing is for a writer to write. So get your manuscript down, get it sorted, get it done. And after it's done, your work as a writer has been accomplished, because you have to get the material into a particular form to be able to put it out into the world, right? So get your material sorted, and then after that, well, any number could play in terms of possibilities and probabilities and all that kind of stuff. So the simplest form of that is, when you start writing, the advice is always given that you just get material down, pen to paper, you write stuff, you get it down, and then you could always correct it later, you could always change it later, right? In that same vein, I am saying, as writers, write first and let the industry stuff happen after. That's my advice. I mean, other people might not agree, but that's what I'm putting out there for the beginners who I am hoping to encourage to start writing and to stick with it, to put that first product out there. Right, and on the topic of how to see ourselves in the industry, I mean, I always like to look at the work of archaeologists and historians when they look at old civilizations and they try to figure out what these civilizations were like before we were here. And it is always interesting that they use two things to figure out what an old civilization looks like. The first thing that they use is ruins, right? And inside of those ruins, they oftentimes try to find some kind of picture or writing. So I would say that the two major things that help to figure out what an old civilization is like is ruins and the civilization's literature, right? That is where I like to pull the perspective back to modern time, to tell somebody who's entering the industry about the importance of what they're doing, you are putting our view of this modern time down on paper. And let's say 100 years, 200 years down the road, somebody gets in contact with your literary work. That would tell that person what we were like before they came along, right? Now, I know some people might say it's a kind of stretch, but it's true. Literature is that important, and ruins are that important, right? So, in a way, I would say if you're not building something, then you should be writing something, because those are the only two ways that I could see that you could be remembered in the next 100 years. But getting back to the video, I remember looking at a video recently where this actor Terrence Howard was being interviewed, I believe in one of the universities, Howard I believe it was, and a student asked him, how do you break into the industry? And he took the question in the exact format that it was given. He said, exactly. He said, how do you break into anything? Right? So as the student tried to recant, he said, no, you used the right words. He said, you have to break in there, right? Because they don't want you there. And I find that was such interesting advice that I wanted to repeat it, right? That if you want to get into this industry with writing, you have to have something to say, and you have to make them hear you, right? I like that aggressive approach that Terrence Howard shared with his students, to let them know that nobody is going to usher you into this industry. Nobody is going to save a seat for you in the industry. So if you're a new writer, you're a budding writer, you just want to get your toes wet and you want to get into the industry, even then you have to do it with some confidence, with some passion, with some aggression, right? And I think that would help you to definitely create some kind of persona as a new entrant into an old industry. So that's my video for today. Thanks a lot. Remember, the subscribe button I think is up here. You can check out my other videos or somewhere on this side, right? Don't be afraid to subscribe. Don't be afraid to turn the notifications on. And thanks again, Facebook, for giving me an ear. Thank you.